You're listening to Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast.
When your heart is aching and your world is shaking, don't give up. No, no, don't give up.
Hello and welcome to Oh My Health, There's Hope. I'm your host, Jana Short, and today I'm here with my very good friend, Rhonda Savestrini. Rhonda believes the best writing happens when you have nothing to lose, when you're in the zone and writing bravely and fearlessly. She is on a mission to help you feel energized and excited about the writing process, to find confidence in your voice as an authority in your industry. Be inspired to write bravely and fearlessly and connect with your audience through authenticity. Rhonda loves helping entrepreneurs and nonfiction writers see the clarity through the chaos, overcome frustration, and push through the head garbage that continually creates self-doubt to find the voice of their business and their brand. As a professional writer for more than 25 years, Rhonda has helped entrepreneurs transform their messy and awkward content into beautifully written narratives that inspire audiences, motivate them to take action. Her work has helped aspiring authors bring their stories to life, longtime authors find their voice, entrepreneurs reach new clients, and TEDx speakers bring the audience to its feet. Yay! I'm so excited.
Thank you. Me too.
Like, I love this series because we're going to talk about one of your favorite topics to talk on, how to kiss your stuck goodbye, because I write. I'm a writer. I do my blogs. I've done 2 books, but by the way, I've only done a chapter in each book.
But it still counts.
I know. I'm now on my 3rd book that is all me. And we were just talking about getting past that stuck and that fear of, how it's going to sound. What's it going to look like? Am I putting too much out there? Am I not putting enough out there? And one of the things, Rhonda, you and I were talking about is for me, writing this book has been so challenging because I've been doing it at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll sit on my computer and I map out my time. Like, this is the time I'm going to write, but that might not necessarily be the time I'm inspired.
Right.
And if I do get into that inspirational zone and it starts flowing, the doorbell rings, the phone rings. I get up and I go get a drink of water. And then I'm like, well, I'll swap out the load until I'm here. Oh, the dog wants to be walked. I'm going to just take a quick walk. And when I come back to the desk, all that creativity and inspiration has to get pulled up again. And it's not always in that same energy that was before. And so I just keep getting stuck. So, like, what are some of the things that you would talk to people about getting to kiss their stuck goodbye?
Right. And I think you mentioned it, and then you kind of talk about how you go around your writing, and it's fear. We're very afraid to put our words out there, and fear is the most common factor when it comes to writer's block, writer's procrastination. When, we sit down, but we're like, let's go get a drink of water. Let's go let the dog out. We're procrastinating because we are afraid to really put our words out into the world. And so if we really dedicate ourselves and be accountable, then we're putting our words out into the world for judgment. We're opening our kimono, if you will, for criticism. And that's a scary, scary place to be. But at the same time, if you flip the script, your writing is so necessary. Like, your audience is waiting to hear from you. They want to be educated by you. They want to be inspired by your words because your words matter. You have so much beauty in your words and so much to say. So when we get past our own little self-imposed fears, that's where the creativity really sets in. And sometimes it could be in the morning, the afternoon. It's when the mood strikes you that you really have to dedicate that time. But I like to tell my clients to just set a timer for 30 minutes. And sometimes I do it for myself. Just 30 minutes so you don't feel overwhelmed by, oh my gosh, I have to sit down and write 1,000 words. It's 30 minutes. Turn your phone off because that thing's always going to distract you. And just dedicate those 30 minutes to your writing and find that space, whatever that space may be. Sometimes I go and I write at my husband's office because it's quieter. than being at home with, the landscapers outside or whatever. So it's just when you find that inspiration, it's staying there and giving yourself permission to be there.
That is really great tip. For me, I think I have to leave the house.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about like just finding a big Airbnb like locally that I can just go hide, take my laptop and be in that zone. And I was wondering, maybe, do you have any tips? Like some of us just, first of all, I do always put pen to paper. I'm old school, and there's just something cathartic about putting those words on a piece of paper and then using those as my bullet points or notes to create that next chapter. But do you have any tips for us on like some of the things we can do to get started, get past that stuck and start creating that magic in us?
Well, again, we need to get past our own self-imposed perfectionism, because perfectionism is just another way of procrastinating. So again, it's that fear factor. It's just this bad, vicious cycle we put ourselves in, where we're so afraid to put our words out there because we don't want someone to criticize them. So if we put all of that away and just give ourselves this permission to write, to really let the words find us. I say that a lot because sometimes I need encouragement to let the words find me. And pen to paper is a great way to start. It really slows down your thinking. It allows you to use a different part of your brain to focus. And I think that it really calms any anxiety about writing, because that's what it is too. We're feeling anxious about getting all of this creativity out to translate it through our fingers. So just slow down and give yourself permission. And I think that's where a lot of us fall into this whole perfectionism, procrastination trap. We don't allow ourselves to say, you know what? I'm going to write. I'm going to do this. And if it takes going to an Airbnb for the weekend, that's fantastic. What a treat.
Right. Right. So one of the tricks that I learned, and I don't even know if you would suggest this, but one of the tricks I learned is my brain goes really fast. Even though I type fast, I just can't get it all out as quickly as I'd like. And so I literally turned my Zoom audio on and I did like I was doing a podcast and I just shared my story. And then I had it transcribed and I was able to take those words from my mouth that was on paper and create my first beautiful chapter, then my second beautiful chapter. It was so much easier for me to verbalize it and then turn it into an emotional chapter.
I love that because it also puts you in a different headspace. It's as if you're having that one-on-one conversation with somebody. So you're sitting in front of your computer, and while you're only talking to yourself, you can see your one person you want to speak to in your head and have that conversation with them. I love that. And sometimes it is easier to vocalize rather than to sit down either with pen and paper or in front of our computers to just talk. And so much good magic comes out of those self-conversations, if you will. I love doing that. And if that's what helps you get your content out, then I say do it. Do it as often as you can and do what feels good to get the content out.
Well, one of the reasons I wanted Rhonda for you to do this series of 4 is because I'm a story girl. I believe that your story, the story that you are having inside of you from your life journey, whatever that is, and it might look similar to somebody else's, but I promise you it's unique and different. If you can get that story onto paper, if you can get that story out into the world, whether it's through blogging or, short stories or in your beautiful book, what if there's somebody out there right now waiting to hear that? And that story will touch them in a way that creates a massive change in their world, right? It creates a beautiful ripple effect. Yes. And Rhonda is like, now she's become my dear friend, but she's the one that's inspired me and became my book coach. And like, she's been phenomenal. And the process is definitely, I can get through a whole book. I know I can.
It can feel overwhelming. And that's why I always coach my clients to break down your projects. That's another part of this whole writer's block and procrastination. It's the feeling of overwhelm. When you sit down and you think, I'm writing a book, I mean, that's a behemoth task. But when you break it down, either I'm going to start with bullet points, I'm going to start with my outline, or I'm just going to write this piece, then you allow yourself to get into the flow, to get into that space. And you don't have to write a whole chapter in one sitting. You don't even have to write 1,000 words in one sitting. But as long as you get started and know that you can write about different pieces at different spaces and time, then it all comes together beautifully at the end when you're ready to compile it into its own beautiful narrative.
Well, I'm going to have you answer some questions for me. For those of you who are wanting to write a book, first of all, I think everybody should have a coach. It's just, unless you're a professional writer, like then maybe you don't need a coach. But if you're wanting to put out really good content and really get your message across, it's really good to have a coach. If I wanted to get fit and join, I don't know, a weightlifting contest, I'm not going to try that on my own. I'm going to get someone to help train me, right? Because I want to succeed at what I'm doing. So Rhonda's an amazing coach. So I would have all of you guys connect with her because she's changed my world. But one of the things, I'm going to start asking you a few questions about writing a book. So if I'm thinking of writing a book and I'm brand new to it and I want to get my story out, what does a good book look like? Like, how big is a chapter? Like, I've seen people who write 3-sentence paragraphs, and I see people who write a paragraph so long, I keep thinking, like, what's happening? Like, are we still,
the Virginia Woolf novel?
Yes. Yes. So what's like, some people might think they have to have that, Great Gatsby size book.
Exactly.
Or they have 100 pages, and that's not enough of a book. Like, that's not a book. What's like a real comfortable space for you so they can see, like, I could do this one chapter at a time. I can do that.
Right. So I guess depending on what you're writing about, I mean, you always want to think of the objective of why you're writing the book and your subject matter. But, between 150 to 200 pages, I think is ideal, especially for your first book. If you want it to be more, absolutely. But again, don't overwhelm yourself. So don't even think in terms of word count or page count. Just let the words flow. Let the words come out, because otherwise you start limiting yourself, or you start watching the word count in your file and you start freaking out, right? And you're like, oh, I need more words. And then it's this fight you're having, this internal fight you're having with yourself, rather than just, again, letting the words find you and letting it flow. So 150 to 200 words is a great place to start. Pages.
The other thing I want to talk about is, I do not want the fact that you're terrified to write to stop you from getting your story out, because it's really that important. It is your responsibility to get your message out in the world and help create that change. So there are other things you can do. You can work with a ghostwriter. And I know that, Rhonda, you do ghostwriting as well. And she, by the way, some of the books that I have read that Rhonda's been behind the scenes helping create are phenomenal. And I've even put one of them in one of our magazines, and it got such great reviews. But having said that, you can find a ghostwriter. And when you get a ghostwriter, you do what I was doing on the Zoom. You just start talking to them about your message, and they create that feeling and emotion around it. And by the way, some of the best books you've read, there's a ghostwriter writing those. Seriously.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we talk, they're not, by the way, all ghostwriters, all editors are not the same. You could have someone write, we were just talking about writing blogs for somebody, right? And you can write a blog, and they usually will charge you per word, and they'll do research and whatever. But if you have a bad blog writer and they're charging per word, there could be like 1,500 thes in there.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Right? You want that message and those words to count and to matter and to like be engaging with your clients. And that's the difference when you're like, say, can I read some of the stuff that you've done? How do I know like what it is I'm going to get? Ask those questions. What are good questions to ask someone who, if I want to get a ghostwriter or an editor for my book, what are some great questions for us to be asking?
Definitely, you want to see samples of their work. Do they have a portfolio? Do they have articles where I can see how they've written something, what they've written about? What are the different genres that they've written about? How long do they take to write these stories? What's their process? There are so many little elements when it comes to hiring a ghostwriter or a writer. I think so many times there's this misconception that writing is easy, or if some, you know, if a professional is doing it, or you're just putting words on a page. So why does it cost so much? There's this element of knowledge and skill and just this art that goes into writing that I think gets discounted or forgotten about, if you will. And so you really, when you're hiring a ghostwriter, when you're hiring someone to serve as your voice or to tell your story authentically in your voice, you want to make a connection with them. It's very personal. It's a very collaborative process, and you want to make sure that you have an open relationship with them so that you don't get mad at each other. You know, you can speak very candidly with one another, because as the ghostwriter, if I'm writing a memoir for somebody, I need to know a lot about that person. I need to know the specifics and the details. Like one book I wrote, the author was saying, well, I have a large family. Well, but what does that mean? And what does that mean to the reader? What's in your head is not in the reader's head. So it's the ghostwriter's job to make sure those details are in the book so that they're carrying the reader along, and the reader is staying engaged and motivated and inspired. So when I said to him, well, what does that mean? Does that mean there's 22 people in your immediate family? I mean, what does that mean? And he's like, well, yes, of course. Well, right, but somebody else isn't going to know that. So it's really the ghostwriter's job to get all those details, to really get that personal knowledge about you so that they can communicate that in your story.
So for those of you who are like listening to this show, I want you to think about your favorite book you ever read. Like whatever that is. Like I grew up loving books. That was my escape to this. It's my brain downtime, is getting lost in a book. And if it's a good writer, you get lost. You get caught up in the characters. When one dies, you feel it. When one's in pain, you feel their pain. When they're overly overjoyed, you get that joy. When you know how to mix your words like that and create that, your book can't help but be a success, right?
Exactly. And you're creating such an emotional connection with the reader too. I love when you say it's escapism, because to me, books are as well. I love to get lost in a book. And I always say that I read business books because I want to know so much more. And I've put books away. I've said, no, thank you. I've threw a book away one time because it was so poorly written. So I honor those people who really hire either the good ghostwriters or know how to write a book successfully.
My favorite book that I remember created such passion in me that I couldn't stop reading, I had to have more, was Where the Red Fern Grows. When I was in like elementary school, that was one of our books that we had to read. And I remember crying for days about the book. I was so moved by it, but it was so powerful. Like it's so amazing. And even now, all of my kids are readers. They're avid readers and they love books. And if we go see a movie that's been created from the book, they get so mad. They're like, I'm done. Nope, that is not, they took this out. They messed this up. But they understand that to put it on the screen and to create the same kind of a reaction and response, it has to look different because it's nothing compares to what your brain does with those words.
Exactly. Plus when it's on screen, it's somebody else's interpretation of that book.
Right. I just love it. What was your favorite first book?
You know, it's interesting. My mom introduced me to Judy Blume when I was in elementary school because of my scoliosis. And so she had written a book about scoliosis, about a young girl having scoliosis. I think it was called Deanie. And so Judy Blume has always had a special place in my heart. And throughout my adolescence, I read all of Judy Blume's books. And one of the last books that my mom ever bought me as an adult was a Judy Blume book that she wrote for adults called Summer Sisters.
I love it. I still even remember Nancy Drew books.
Oh, I never read those. Like those just weren't my thing.
They were so great. Like, they're short little mysteries. I just loved it. So look, you could be your story. It doesn't have to be, you know, it could be a motivational book. It could be a book about your personal journey. Whatever that message is inside of you that you want to reach out to the world and touch and start changing lives. I'm telling you, Where the Red Fern Grows touched my life so much that it literally made me not only an avid reader, but I understand the importance of conveying that emotion across to people, your feelings across to people, and really connecting. So tell us how we can reach you, because you're phenomenal. If you guys want to write a book, book a call with her and at least find out what you need to do to start writing a book, or to even write, if like maybe you're not ready for a book. It took me a while. And you're like, I just want to put my stories out in blogs. I want to just like put it out there and see what happens. Reach out to her.
So absolutely, reach out on my website, rhondasavestrini.com. Schedule a call with me. I would love to hear about your writing journey and how I can help you get over that stuck, get over that fear, and really create some beautiful stories for you to share your voice with the world.
We definitely have two more series to this, 2 more episodes to this series coming up to learn more about how you can start creating your own books, your own blogs, and really creating the desired effect that you want to get back from the message you're putting out in the world.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Rhonda, for
Thank
being
you,
here
Jana.
today.
I love it.
Thanks for listening to the Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast. Make sure to visit Jana's website, bestholisticlife.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play, or listen there, so you'll never miss an episode. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you simply tell a friend about the show. That'll help too. Let's change the world together, one health expert at a time. Looking forward to seeing you next time.